back onto my YouTube channel. So today guys, we're going to be going through day 5 of week 2 of the seamless study guide that we have been going through. If this is your first time coming onto this video, as I've said in previous videos, please go and watch the so like day 1, day 2, day 3, 4, etc. before, because it's a series that we're going through, and we're basically going through the entire Bible but through this one small book by Angie Smith. Basically the whole point of it is to show us God's one seamless love story through it all, and she picks out, you know, the important stories in the book and just how we can understand God and his love. So anyway, let's get right into the video. So week 2, day 5, and this is about Joseph. So Angie says, okay, so you might have heard the story of Joseph and his rainbow coloured robe, but do you understand why that was important? Say no, please say no, because I want this to be a aha day for you. We know Joseph was Jacob's favourite, and so did everyone else, including his bitter brothers. In fairness, Joseph didn't play it down very well. He actually made a point of reminding them how special he was. His dad gave him a robe of many colours to signify his importance, and Joseph strutted around his brothers while wearing it and declaring his position in the family. Read Genesis chapter 37 verse 1 to 11 and record the gist of what Joseph told his brothers about his dream. So guys, I hope you guys got your Bibles as well today with you. So chapter 37, Joseph's dreams. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, and his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornament robe for him. Ornate. I said that wrong, sorry guys. Okay, verse 4. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak any kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of corn out the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered round mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule over us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down before me." Verse 10, where he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come down and bow to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So, in a nutshell, Joseph was going to be some sort of king, reigning over something, and his brothers didn't like it. And Joseph didn't really have wisdom to understand that sometimes keep your dreams to yourself. I know that I've had a lot of dreams, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, I had this dream, I had that dream, because I'm a big dreamer, by the way. Like, God speaks to me a lot through dreams. And sometimes some people either don't want to hear it, or God genuinely doesn't want you to share it, or some people actually might, you know, not hate you, they might dislike you for it, or think that, oh, you must think you're something because you're having dreams like that, or you must think you're something because God's showing you dreams. Not saying that you can't share dreams, because I still do sometimes, but you have to be so sensitive to what God does want you to share, what God doesn't want you to, and you have to have wisdom, God's wisdom, in how to go ahead with that, and that's with anything, not just dreams. But anyway, back to the seamless guide. So Angie says, They're over him, really over him. So they do what any of us would do with our dreamy, prideful sibling. They ripped off his robe and threw him in a dry well to die. Eek. Then they decided to sell him into slavery to the Ishmaelites. Ouch. Where have we heard that name? Yep, these are the descendants of Ishmael, our favourite wild donkey of a man. So if you remember from, I think, a few videos ago in this series that we spoke about Ishmael, who, yeah, God had said, I think, was it God had said it? I can't remember. It said he was a wild donkey of a man or something, and it was just like, huh? But it was meant to say that it's meant to be like a good thing. I don't know. Anyway, Angie says, for dramatic effect, they slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe in its blood to show their father, to convince him that Joseph has been killed by wild animals. That is so horrible. Like, can you imagine doing something like that? Do you know how evil you've got to be to do something like that? Anyway, needless to say, this moment probably didn't make it to the family scrapbook. Obviously, Jacob is devastated that now he has lost his favourite wife and his favourite son. And he goes into a period of mourning where no one can comfort him. Little does he know that God has a huge surprise for him a few years down the road. And that's basically what the dreams were about. Joseph's captors take him to Egypt and sell him as a slave. Boo! His owner, Potiphar, comes to depend on Joseph. Yay! But then Potiphar's wife falsely accuses him of rape. Boo! Joseph is thrown in prison for his crime. Boo! Where he interprets dreams for prisoners and eventually for Pharaoh. Joseph lands in the good graces of the ruler. Yay! It's a roller coaster for sure, but it ends with Joseph as second in command over all of Egypt. Yay! So then Angie goes on to say, the dream Joseph had interpreted for Pharaoh involved telling him that Egypt was going to have plenty of food for the next 7 years, followed by 7 years of famine. He warned Pharaoh to stock up while he could, and Pharaoh listened. When the famine came, Egypt had more than enough food than they needed, but the surrounding areas were suffering terribly, and here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Who shows up in Egypt? And this is in Genesis chapter 42, verse 6 to 8. Now Joseph was the governor of the land, the person who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. Oh my gosh, so his brothers arrived. Damn. Okay, verse 7. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. Where do you come from, he asks. From the land of Canaan, they replied, to buy food. Verse 8. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. So then Angie says, well, not all of them showed up. Which one is missing from the crew, and what does Joseph tell them to do? Let's have a look in chapter 42, verse 20. So Joseph says, but you must bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified, and that you may not die. This they proceeded to do. Woo! So Angie says, look back at the list you made of the Israel's 12 sons. What insight does it give you into Joseph's requests? So that list basically that you guys made in the previous video of all of Israel's 12 sons. I'll let you guys go and answer that question in your own time. So the question is, what insight does it give you into Joseph's requests? So she wants you to go and look back at the names. So then she goes on to say, the boys head back home and tell Israel they're going to need to bring Ben back to Egypt with them. Daddy's not happy about it, but concedes and sends them on their way. Who does Joseph ask them about in Genesis 43, verse 26 to 31? When Joseph came home, they presented to him the gifts they had brought into the house, and they bowed down before him to the ground. He asked them how they were, and then he said, how is your aged father you told me about? Is he still living? They replied, your servant, our father is still alive and well. And they bowed down and prostrating themselves before him. As he looked about and saw his brother Benjamin, his own mother's son, he asked, is this your youngest brother? the one you told me about. And he said, God be gracious to you, my son. Deeply moved at the sight of his brother, Joseph hurried out and looked for a place to weep. Oh! And he went into his private place and wept there. After he had washed his face, he came out and controlling them, said, serve the food. Even bringing a tear to my eye. Feeling Joseph's like emotions, like seeing his youngest brother. But anyway, let's get back to the seamless guide. So, what brings Joseph to tears, she asks, which is obviously seeing his youngest brother. So then Angie says, up until this point, the brothers really don't understand why they've been brought into this palace and treated so well. I imagine them shooting one another glances while they feast, wondering what brought about this amazing opportunity. So imagine you're sitting there like, what is going on? Like, so Angie says, eventually Joseph reveals himself to them. Read all of Genesis 45 for yourself because it's spectacular in so many ways. I'm not going to go ahead and read that because that's really long, and this is gonna, well, it's not really long, but it will make the video quite lengthy. So go ahead and read it. That's Genesis chapter 45. So then Angie says, make any notes that come to mind when you read this. Did anything surprise you, inspire you, or give you any new insights into the story? So ask yourself those questions when you go ahead and read chapter 45. So then Angie says, I love how tender Joseph is in these paragraphs and the way you can see the little boy in him. He wants to see his dad and to reassure his brothers. And that all is well, and God has had his way. He doesn't waste a moment by letting them stew in regret. He simply says that God prevailed over their evil intentions. Well, that'll preach. Jacob and Joseph are reunited and Pharaoh blesses Jacob. They are given the best of the land and enjoyed plenty of food and goodness, and all is well. So then Angie says, read Genesis chapter 47 verse 29 to 31. What is Jacob's dying request? So verse 29. When the time drew near for Israel to die, he called for his son Joseph and said to him, if I found favour in your eyes, put your hand under my thigh and promise me that you will show me kindness and faithfulness. Do not bury me in Egypt, but when I rest with my fathers, carry me out of Egypt and bury me where they are buried. I will do as you say, he said. Swear to me, he said. And then Joseph swore to him, and Israel worshipped as he leaned on the top of his staff. So guys, I don't know if you've got the gist, but basically Jacob is Israel. He changed his name to Israel because he wrestled with God. That was the meaning of the name, I think. Gosh, I hope I didn't get that wrong. But based on the other video and in day 4 that we read through, yeah, his name was changed to Israel. But I've noticed that Angie's still referring to him as Jacob, and then in the Bible they're referring to him as Israel. So that can come across as quite confusing, but same person. So Angie says, Egypt is not his homeland, Canaan is. So this is Jacob, Israel, or whichever. In Genesis chapter 49, Jacob blesses all of his sons and prophesies what their lives and legacies will hold. Read Genesis chapter 49, verse 28 to 33, and record what you learn about the specific place where Jacob will be buried. So let's have a quick read. Okay, so verse 28. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said to them when he blessed them, giving each the blessing appropriate to him. So verse 29, then he gave them these instructions. I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre in Canaan, which Abraham bought along with the field as a burial place from Ephron to the Ephron the Hittite. That's it, Hittite. Oh my gosh, don't know how I didn't get that right. Hittite, that's what it's called. All these names like, oh my gosh. Okay, verse 31. There Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebecca were buried. And there I buried Leah. So basically, Jacob wants to be buried in the land with his fathers, in the field that Abraham bought, and with, you know, all his family. So yeah. So Angie says he wants to go home. Abraham's home, Sarah's home, Isaac and Rebecca's home, Leah's home. He wants to be gathered with his people in death, and Joseph honours his request. He and all of his brothers carry the body of their father and lay him to rest in the same cave as his ancestors. Now that Jacob is gone, Joseph's brothers wonder if he'll turn his back on them, or worse. Read Genesis chapter 50, verse 19 to 21 to find out. And then the book of Genesis ends with the death of Joseph. So let's have a quick read. But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. I am in the place of God. You intended to harm me, but God intended for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children." And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. Wow, Joseph was a nice man. Verse 22. Joseph stayed in Egypt along with all his father's family. He lived in 110 years and saw the third generation of the Ephraim's children. Also the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were placed at the birth on Joseph's knees. Then, Angie says, the book of Genesis then ends with the death of Joseph. Read Genesis chapter 50, verse 22 to 26 and describe where Joseph was buried. Does this surprise you? Why or why not? So, the death of Joseph. Joseph stayed in Egypt along with all his father's family. He lived 110 years and saw the third generation of the Ephraim's children. Also the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were placed at the birth on Joseph's knees. I hope I've said those names correctly, like... Okay, so verse 24. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "I am about to die, but God will surely come to your aid and take you out of this land to the land he promised on an oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." And Joseph made the Israelites swear on an oath and said, "God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones from this place." So Joseph died at the age of 110, and after they embalmed him, he was placed in a coffin in Egypt. So then Angie says, before we end this week's lesson, let's just take a minute for an overall recap. See how much of this you can fill in by memory, and then look through your notes for the ones you can't recall. Or you can check Genesis chapter 35, verse 23 to 26, chapter 41, verse 45 to 46, and then Matthew chapter 1, verse 2. So she's added on this little table thing, grid thing, where you can fill in. So like she's got Abraham and Sarah. I'll put it on the screen as well. She's got Abraham and Sarah, and then it's Isaac and Rebecca, I think it is. Esau. Oh my days. Who was that? Jacob, Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, Zilpah. I don't know this one. And there's one more there. But I'll add it on there and see if you guys can fill it out. Okay guys, so that is officially the end of week 2. And we are then moving on to week 3. I don't know if you guys noticed that I do release about 2 to 3 per week. So even though I'm only on my 2nd week now in this video, this is probably like the 3rd or 4th week of releasing the videos. I'll try and release more per week, but because I'm trying to release other videos at the same time, it can be really hard to get it out, but I'm gonna try. But for now, it's definitely 2 to 3. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure to comment down below if this has helped you, and make sure to share it with your friends or family or anyone. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe, guys. But yeah, bye guys.